Elon Musk, both of his businesses were going to go bankrupt. Got an injection from Mercedes-Benz for $200 million, and he got a $1 billion contract from NASA in 24 hours. I find myself at those moments all the time. There's a problem.
Why is that?
There's not very many businesses that you can actually start now and open the door and make money. And the companies I see that work really well are...
Nicholas Reichenbach is a serial entrepreneur and investor known for his sustainable and wellness-driven businesses.
He's the man behind Flow Water and calls himself a conscious capitalist.
When I was 18, no one talked about that.
Coming up with some sort of new tech, something disruptive. How do you start?
Get your idea, throw it into AI and say, hey, what's the likelihood of success? And they'll tell you.
Wow.
Yeah. Have more confidence in your ability to fucking crush it.
What's the secret to building out a good business?
The secret to building out a good business? Well, these days it's totally different.
How does that process work for you?
Well, I broke a lot of rules. Being an entrepreneur is like eating glass. Eventually, you're just going to get gut. Like, that's how it feels.
What's the first step founders and entrepreneurs should take to actually get that ball rolling?
Number one.
We find it very interesting that the majority of you who watch and listen to this show aren't yet subscribed to our channels across Spotify, Apple, YouTube. It would mean the world to us if you can do us that small kindness. It allows us to continue to bring on amazing guests week after week and continue to provide you with amazing value and content. It's the only thing we'll ever ask of you. If you can hit that follow or subscribe button, it would mean the world to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. There's no way I couldn't start this conversation without talking about your spin on sunny side eggs. Like, what's the story with cowboy eggs?
It's kind of like, as it says, like you just, you go cowboy on it, shoot from the hip.
Okay.
And you take, sunny side, approach initially to cook all the whites. And then when you get to the sunny side up phase, instead of just leaving there, you break the yolk, let it mess around with all the whites, and then you just roll it, right? And eventually it just becomes, this beautiful, messy breakfast. And it's great for kids.
Well, what's interesting is this analogy of a messy breakfast, I think, is going to ring true for entrepreneurs and founders in general, because life can be very messy when you're trying to run a business.
Oh, man.
When
chaos is order.
Well, yeah, no words were spoken more true than that. In your bio, I saw something that was really interesting. It said entrepreneur, but then it said conscious capitalist. What does that mean? Some AI came up with it and I loved it. Okay. I was like, my chat GDP assistant came up with it. I was like, that's what a great term.
I've never heard it before. Well, so I've been working with the chat GDP Pro, and it's been learning about me as I kind of get my projects going, and I asked to be my personal assistant. Yeah. I'd accept it.
It's cheaper.
It's cheaper, and it's getting more robust as time goes on. Yep. And so I asked, I haven't given it a name yet, though. I should ask what name, if he or she or it has a name. But I got it to rewrite the bio based on everything that I've inputted into the system and what's online and all that stuff, and it came up with that bio, and it coined a term that I'd never used before, which is conscious capitalism.
What does it mean to you?
Well, I make only really specific investments now through my fund, Evolver Ventures. Mm-hmm. And it all revolves around better for you, better for the planet.
Okay.
So I won't, I don't, even my stock portfolio, like, your investment portfolio, mine's entirely ESG.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And
so I
don't
don't buy companies that are not ESG.
Okay.
Well, I think we know where the problem is with consumerism. So I don't think I need to tell any listener what the problem is with consumerism. We consume too much, and we also consume a lot of products and services that are not really aligned with our values. And then we wonder why the world is the way it is. And conscious consumption would kind of go on like, I want to be conscious about what I consume and have them align with my values. Well, conscious capitalism is the same way. Where you put your mouth, you put your money. And Flow's the highest rated ESG beverage company in the world, in accordance to our B Corp certification, but also our NASDAQ 1 report, which is the ESG governing body for public companies.
Yeah.
One of them, the dominant one in North America. I think it's important for myself as the founder and chairman and CEO and blah, 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 to actually live out the vision of Flow in every iteration of what I do, as a individual, as a person, and also professional. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense if I had an oil company or an aluminum company that wasn't sustainable in my portfolio. And so I look at investing the same way as I look at how we need to make individual choices of where we put our money. And the markets actually move towards the money. They don't move towards, politicians. They actually move towards the money. And when you make a decision to buy a product from, let's call it another country, that may not have the same values that you have, you're making a decision to finance them. And that's where I kind of like really, I'm conscious about the capital that I deploy across the entire ecosystem of where value's coming in for me and where I thrive and make prosperity for my family and for myself and for society. And I like to deploy it in exactly the same way as it came in.
Interesting. That's an interesting approach to investing, an interesting approach to company building. And that's partly why we're having this conversation. So you mentioned it, you're the CEO, founder, chairman of Flow, but you've also done a number of other projects. Let's talk through some of those first.
Yeah.
How did you get to Flow? What were you doing before that? And then what is your current function like as a CEO? I really want to dive into what that looks like as a founder, as a CEO, because I think there's a lot of people who are in the process of raising capital, starting a business. They're maybe jumping into a startup of some kind, and they're going to try to scale it. And there's so much nuance to what it looks like. And I think entrepreneurship in general has been over glamorized a little bit, where it's like you can be taking meetings from some remote island, sipping on cocktails at 2 p.m.
Doing a podcast
in the afternoon. Yeah. But, before we started rolling, you talked about how, you're getting upwards of 150 or more emails a day and you're sorting through all of those. So there's a lot that goes on there. But before we go further, let's go backwards. Who's Nick? Who's Nicholas?
Well, I mean, at the heart of who I am is I'm a creator.
Okay.
Number one, I love to create things, products, services, and I also like to make people happy. And I like to have a positive impact on the environment around me, and that's one of my superpowers. Is keeping that positive environment around me at all times. So when I look back at my history as it relates to who I am as an entrepreneur, I didn't even know that term until I was well into high school. But at the core of it, I'm a creator, and I love to create businesses that are prosperous, but also that have new grounds. Like, they're not new products. They're always disruptive and innovative in an area where society is not caught up to consumer intent to purchase. And it's actually every single thing I've ever done falls within that statement. creating products and services where consumer intent is not being serviced by the existing infrastructure or companies around it through products and services. And it started off where in the 1990s, late 1980s, there was this new genre of music that was coming in from Chicago, Detroit, and London, England, called dance music. We didn't call it EDM though, but that's what it was, right? Electronic dance music.
Yep.
And for those listeners that are my age, we used to listen to it at a nightclub that broadcast it live called REM, or what was called now the Government, and now it's Condos. And this DJ, Chris Shepard, used to DJ house music. And I got into that in high school in 1986, 87. And then it kind of morphed into dance music and electronic dance music. And I had a lot of passion I still have a lot of passion for it. That's dominantly what I listen to is electronic dance music. And I had a lot of passion for it. And the first thing that I started to do was throw parties. Started off in my hometown where Flo's from, Maumee, Ontario, in South Bruce County. And I remember, we used to grab my parents' speakers and take them up into the arena and start playing music and start breakdancing in one of the rooms and charge $2. $2 was a lot of money back then too. And then I was known in many counties, like 4 or 5 counties around where I grew up, to throw the largest events. And the largest parties at the actual spring, the Flow Spring.
Oh, wow.
We had over 2,000 people at the Flow Spring for one of our events. The last one we ever threw because my father found out, and that's a whole other story.
So it kind of came full circle when you started a company and named it Flow.
I know, yeah, because I grew up on the spring, and I really enjoyed the entertainment of throwing an event, the promotion of it. And then also just making people happy. Yeah. And I learned earlier on I was a great promoter. And I brought that immediately into my first business, which was called Rave New World instead of Brave New World after reading the book. I'm like, no, it's a Rave New World. And I started throwing events in University College in London, Ontario. And I did that for almost 10 years. And then at the height of it, we were throwing events all over North America, ranging from 500 to 25,000 plus.
Wow.
And we threw about 600 concerts a year.
That's
that's
those numbers are like stadium size numbers.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. They were. Yeah, and we did it predominantly in electronic dance music, but I did a couple hip-hop shows as well. We threw about 1 hip-hop show a week.
So at this point, you're pretty much a full-fledged entrepreneur, promoting events, putting on events.
18 years old and onwards.
What was the biggest lesson as an entrepreneur from
earlier
that journey?
On?
Yeah.
Well, that journey was interesting amongst a lot of different lessons I learned. We built the company up, and at one point when we sold it, and we sold the majority stake in the business, 74%. I remember that. And I was in 2001, and I wasn't really familiar with the loss of control that actually gave, or the authority that gave the other party in order to make decisions on your behalf without your alignment or consent.
Yep.
And that company came to an end at the end of 2001 after I'd sold it, where because of macro conditions of September 11th, it kind of took the bottom out of concerts. No one wanted to go to concerts. Go figure.
Yeah, well.
And I remember Madonna canceled their tour, U2 canceled their tour, and our business partners that owned the majority of the company decided to shut it down, shut the dance music division down.
So that control that you gave up, I mean, it's part of a sale, but you ultimately gave up that kind of control. What was the biggest takeaway from that maybe you still apply in your approach to business today? If there's a founder watching, listening to this, and is in a position where they're either about to get funded for their business opportunity, or they're looking at partnering with someone or selling a portion of their business, and the proposition in front of them is to basically give up control of their product, their project. Yeah. What would you say to those people?
Make sure that when you're doing a transaction and you're giving that control, that you know who the partner is and that they're aligned with what you want to do in the future, either contractually or not, or both. That's important because they have their own conditions that they're, whether it's a private equity fund or a strategic business, they have their own agenda. And you got to make sure that the agenda is exactly what you want to live out. After you sign it away, they usually make you sign an agreement that's called the golden handcuffs, but they make you sign an agreement to actually live out a certain period of time to operate it as well. And I learned through that transaction that I didn't know what it meant to give it up, but I found out very quickly after when I showed up to work one day and the CFO said, "Oh, by the way, our parent company took all the money out of our bank account and now you have to lay off all 70 staff." Wow. And I cried. Yeah. Yes, I went back into my office and I cried for the first time. And my other business partners came in to console me in that, because I had to deliver to 70 people that were shutting it down. And then that's when I said, I don't think I want to do that again. And if I do it again, then I'm ready to walk away from it. Yeah. And so I made a conscious decision moving forward that I either was going to be a minority partner or a controlling partner.
I see.
And that kind of brought me into my next phase, which is another 2 decades till 20 years of my business career, where I moved into mobile entertainment. And I put one of the first ringtones, an MP3 file, on a phone, together with Motorola and MTV. And I was doing my master's in business and international commerce in London, England. And I'd moved from Canada and got right back into it. Of course, do your master's and start a business. Brilliant idea.
Why not?
Brilliant. I remember working every weekend for 18
practice.
Months.
Yeah.
Well, I did that. And, I went into creating one of the first ringtone companies and one of the first mobile game companies. I still have a mobile game company called Magmic. That I'm an active shareholder in, but I'm no longer on the board of it. So I got into mobile entertainment after that for 20 years in London, England, Stockholm, Sweden, Stockholm. And that's about 6 years. And then I went back to Canada and then moved to New York. And throughout that time, I started four different companies and exited them all. But they're all in mobile entertainment products.
Okay. What, this journey of jumping from one project to another and sometimes simultaneously, projects running in parallel to one another. Some people have, in conversations with others, I've heard people say, I wish I had that entrepreneurial spirit. Do you always know that you're going to be an entrepreneur, or is that something that you can learn to pick up and do? Because there's people who listen and watch this who've written to us and said, hey, I would really like to have more conversations on the pod around entrepreneurship. I want to learn how to become an entrepreneur, especially in today's age where it seems like everyone has a million side hustles going on.
Everyone's got a side hustle.
Right. And people who have the regular day job, not that there's anything wrong with that, are also starting to itch for the, like, I want to do something that I'm passionate about. How do you start? Where do you start?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've thought a lot about being an entrepreneur. Like I had a midlife crisis moment where I had sold one of my companies to in Silicon Valley, and I was living in San Francisco. And we'd sold a video chat company. And I was living there, and it was finished, and I was off my golden handcuffs. And I was moping around my condo, and my wife said to me, "Are you gonna mope around for days?" This was like 2 days into it. I'm like moping around, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I actually started writing a CV out for the first or second time. Like I hadn't even updated my CV in a while, and LinkedIn was there, but I started writing out, and I was like, well, maybe, I'll go get a job somewhere. I'll get a job and do that, and then my wife's like, okay. She said, we'll see about that. And then the very next day, I was like, no, I'm going to, I realized, like, no, I'm never going to be anyone else. I'm going to be me, the creator. I'm going to go create another thing. And then I just owned it after that. And I think I was 38 or something like that. When I realized, like, oh my God, I'm a lifer. So I better get comfortable with it. And then I thought, well, later on after this period, I thought, well, really, what does make the difference? So what is the difference between a business person that knows how to do business and run businesses and an entrepreneur? And
because there is a difference.
There is a total difference. One's a manager. And they know how to manage, and they may have some superpowers in other areas. But the one thing that an entrepreneur always has is a level of risk tolerance that is beyond any normal rational person. It's not a rational thing. Like, I will take risks that would seem completely normal to me, but they're completely abnormal to a logical person that is like a business manager or an employee or that type of workforce. But and I think this goes across the board with all entrepreneurs. Like, I watched that 60-minute episode with Elon Musk, and I was like, wow, in less than 24 hours, both of his businesses were going to go bankrupt. And then in 24 hours, he got an injection from Mercedes-Benz for $200 million on his recall of the Roadster. And he licensed his technology to them. And he got $1 billion contract from NASA in 24 hours. And I find myself at those moments all the time. Back to the roller coaster. Like, I find myself repeating it always in those moments of like going around in a circle and coming out the other end in a corkscrew, faster, stronger, more excited, it's like, and so the level of risk that you have to take to be a successful entrepreneur is not a normal course.
Is it for everyone?
I definitely not. Definitely.
So if there's someone who shouldn't be taking that kind of a risk, what does that person look like? People
that save a lot of money, they're very conservative in their approach to things. They worry a lot.
Okay.
And that's not a life of an entrepreneur. I very rarely worry about anything that I can control.
How do you learn to not worry about those things?
Well, you got to let go of the outcome and get married and fall in love with the process. You got to find your flow. You know, you got to, but my flow is being me. And, you know, surfers can catch the wave. I'm on my wave. Every day I wake up, I'm on my wave with flow. Excuse the pun. I'm a promoter. What can I say?
It was a really nice.
What can I say?
So how did you end up starting Flow? What was the catalyst there?
Well, the catalyst was up until Flow, I was mainly in tech. And like our carbon footprint in tech is like a couple servers in an office and like 30, 60 people. And we have a very low carbon footprint. If you think about it, we did, you know, at the point we didn't even have a printer. And I was like, wow, like it's great. We can affect so many lives in a positive way without having a negative, pull on the environment. And living in Silicon Valley, you get kind of like a very conscious, you know, advanced level of consciousness, you know, coming out of Silicon Valley, breaking grounds on the newest of the new, and all of the, you know, conscious capital around you that's fueling that movement. And so sustainability was coming into the environment, but it still wasn't quite there in food and beverage. But the natural grocery movement was starting to really pick up. And having been a tech entrepreneur from 1998, all the way to then, 2013, I saw that the whole boom of like everything, the internet boom, that was the first one. Then I saw the Facebook boom in 2005. And I saw all these like booming where money flows from one area to the next, and then it flows from one area to the next. And what I saw coming out of like 2 decades of tech is that consumer products was about to get a really big boom. Where all of these companies like General Mills and Coca-Cola and they were not innovating in this space. Their innovation was like an M&A strategy, and entrepreneurs were not really in that space because of the barriers to entry were too high. You know, to really start a startup, you're like, oh yeah, to start this startup, we need $20 million. It doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? You go, oh, okay, friends and family cobble together $1 million, baby, right?
Do you think I gotta ask, do you think the barrier to entry is high in Canada for startups?
Much higher than the United States. Much higher. And there's way less money. There's like 50 times less money in this country.
So if let's
per
say
capita.
If a founder has an idea, a concept, a project, and they have to raise $3 million, let's say, for their whatever, how do you even do that?
In Canada?
Yeah.
Because I've raised money in the US, Canada, Europe, so they're all different.
How do you raise in general? Maybe that's the question.
Well, typically, well, let's talk Canada for one, because there's a problem here, a big problem. The first money that comes in your seed investment round are usually like high net worth individuals and some early stage venture capital funds. That doesn't exist in Canada. The ultra high net worth individuals are very sparse, and they're usually doing their own thing. And then there's very few early stage venture capital funds here. In fact, I can't even think of one.
Interesting.
You know, maybe there's a couple small ones, but they're not big. They don't have hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's a void in the Canadian capital raising that's anything under $5 million. You have to actually go to friends and family, and you have to go to all of your friends and family and all of their friends and family. And eventually you get to this area where it's retail investors, which are kind of stockbrokers managing other people's money. And that kind of is like usually just for public companies, and they don't really take the risk of deploying their clients' money in private, small, non-profitable startups.
Right.
And so that void is it's just getting bigger. If you didn't have the BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada, or the EDC, the Export Development Bank of Canada, which they provide a little bit of money, you don't have very many areas to turn other than trying to capitalize it yourself, or try to go to your friends and family for the first $5 million.
So do we have an innovation problem here because of that?
Absolutely. It's called the Great Brain Drain. Where would you go? Would you stay here, or would you go to the U.S. if you were an entrepreneur?
Definitely the U.S.
You'd definitely go to the U.S., and if you had the opportunity to, you would. And I did, I moved from Ottawa, Canada to New York in 2007 for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then how do you raise funds for, let's say, a project like Flow that's based out of Canada? You're operating it within Canada. It's got global expansion and reach happening, but how does that process work for you?
How it worked for me was probably very unique.
Okay.
I broke a lot of rules, meaning like didn't do what normal people would do. But if you take into account my experience with 30 years, of experience and 20 years plus in tech and tech startups, I learned a lot from how to structure deals, how to participate in deals, where the pitfalls are, and having Flow was my 11th company, and now I'm on 13. So, but it was it was lucky 11, and so I learned from every previous company that all of them had financing at one point in time, what not to do, and then back to this part of the conversation of control. Flow, I decided that I wanted to maintain control forever, like for a long time, until I was ready to go. Until the company had seen its full potential and I felt like it could grow without me and without my influence. So earlier on, and also it's my family spring. And I wanted to ensure the integrity of the spring, not only from an ESG, so never take more than what's given to you from Mother Earth, but also from like just maintaining my parents and our reputation in our community, and making sure that we're always doing the right things. Because my father would never have agreed to let me abstract the water from Flow if he thought that there was any potential of putting a plastic factory in his hometown, where his grandfather and his great-grandfather and his great-grandfather lived. And our names on the downtown, like in the downtown core on the buildings. And so I said, with this one, I want to actually be a controlling owner until it's done, until it's actually generational, or I have a leader and a team that can take it all the way without my influence at all. So I structured it that way from day one. I learned a long time ago in Silicon Valley about multi-voting shares as an example. So I issued out multi-voting shares for all of my equity that I put in, cash, as well as the founding equity of the company were all multi-voting shares. Meaning they had like 10-1 votes. And if you look at dilution over a period of a company's time, all the dilution happens like within the first 5 years, where you're doing, your seed round A, B, C, D, E exit, but I structured together with my lawyer a multi-voting structure in a CPG company, which was not really heard of. Mark Zuckerberg and the Google guys, and everybody has multi-voting shares in Silicon Valley. So they're very common. And I don't think that anyone had applied that corporate structure and strategy of control over a long period of time in a CPG environment. Mm-hmm. So that was very innovative for me to be able to live out a very long period of time, and I actually raise a large amount of capital, and still maintain control of your vision and mission and your workforce and the products that you put out. So that's what I did. I created a company that could outlive me.
Yeah. To go back to the funding part. So if, let's say, you're an entrepreneur here in Canada, or even if you are an entrepreneur in the US, and you're at that point in your project where you're ready to start raising the funds you need to get it off the ground, whether it's a software company, maybe it's a brick and mortar company, but whatever the project is, you need to raise some funds for. What's the first step founders and entrepreneurs should take to actually get that ball rolling? Is it very much just, hey, reaching out to your own network and saying, hey, do you know any investors? Are you an investor? Or is there a strategic way to do something like that?
Well, first, for me, it's about product.
Okay.
Make a product, and do it on your own dime, because people want to see something, whether it's digital or tactile, analog. That's not relevant, but you got to show your vision in a product, and at the very least, show it in a deck, visual art, so people can understand what the idea is and that it's properly vetted out. I don't know how many business plans I've written in my lifetime, but write the business plan and vet it out and put visual representation around that business plan, and if you have the money and time, make the product.
What's the secret to building out a good business plan?
The secret to building out a good business plan? Well, these days it's totally different. You can just stick it into ChatGPT and pop out the other side. Hey, assistant, can you write me a business plan? Which I did. I did 2 or 3 business plans, and I wrote one business plan on a 4-hour flight, financials and everything, designed everything.
Really?
Yeah, just in ChatGPT.
I guess AI is going to be a significant game changer in helping entrepreneurs get ahead further, especially in these initial stages of building a company where it's a lot of hours spent putting together plans and writing things out that you could do this so much quicker now. Yeah,
and so my answer is I wouldn't write a business plan. I would be working with AI to write the business plan in this next wave of evolution.
Yeah.
But before, I used to even do business plans with Deloitte. That's, Deloitte, I need to hire Deloitte and pay them $100,000 to write a business plan. You know what I mean? I've done that before, but so it's kind of nowadays we don't need to do that. Just like creating apps, it's not the same as it was when we first used WAP, wireless application protocols. That's the first generation of data going over phones. Yeah. So now you really get your idea and throw it into AI and pop out and get them to flush it out. Go through the discipline of vetting out your idea so that it's rock solid. And getting your thoughts down in perfection, getting your competitive analysis done, and then popping out the other side with financial projections, risk tolerance against that. And then now, you can take that existing business plan, put it back into AI and say, hey, what's the likelihood of success? And they'll tell you. And it's really accurate from what I've seen. So now I would say, use the tools around you to get your vision as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as a creator. Create that with all the tools that you have advantage of, whether it's video, audio, technology. And then if you want to create a product, spend a lot of time in making sure the product's perfect.
Yeah.
Because if the product's perfect, consumers will love it.
Do you find traditional marketing still works for products these days, or has the game shifted with the advent of social media and brands becoming more focused on storytelling online?
Yeah, I often think about this. Having a very tactile product like Flow in an established industry, and up until this point, we spend 70% on traditional and 30% on new things.
Why is that?
Retail is a very expensive game to play, and you have to invest against retail because the point of purchase, or when people decide to purchase a product, like almost 90% of it's just at retail.
Yeah.
Like you don't even need digital to do it. But, and you need good package design, clarity on positioning of your product against a consumer, you know, what value, like what USPs, unique selling propositions you have. So we spent a lot of time on package design. We hired an agency to do consumer insight and research against our consumer, against the package design. And we spent a lot of time just making sure the package design was good. But with that being said, with all my tech background, I used that experience to create new ways to bring it to market that had never been done before in 2015. That's 10 years ago. It's our 10th year anniversary.
Congrats.
Thank you. Yeah, it's big. It's actually Earth Day, April 22nd.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so it's almost our 10th year. And like we did the first direct-to-consumer delivery of water on subscriptions, and I built the platform from scratch. I didn't even think Shopify was around. Was it around 10 years ago?
Know.
It may have just started, but it was not.
Yeah.
It was not what it was today. So you couldn't get off the shelf website. So I built the entire back end, spent $250,000 on building a direct-to-consumer portal that had a fleet of electric vehicles delivering Flow to the GTA. And we built that business up to $2 million in the first 18 months.
You keep saying we.
We always need we.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Why is that important?
You know, you're only as good as your leadership and in your team. And I don't think I've ever done a company by myself. Be a real estate agent if you want to do that, right? You don't really need a lot of people to sell houses or buy houses. But no, I always have great other founders.
How do you find a good co-founder? Because that's, as much as it is their skill set, it's a personality fit.
Yep, absolutely. I don't think I've ever had a founder that I didn't personally know before they were a founder.
Okay.
I actually work with people that I went to university with, and that far back. Yeah. My other co-founder of Flow is my high school best friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
And there's no concern of fit, but also...
And my wife.
Like, is there
who I met in high school too.
Okay, so it's a family affair. But I guess my question is the piece around, fit with a co-founder. There's bound to be arguments. There's bound to be disagreements.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Disputes over vision, next steps. Nothing is linear when building a business, and there's going to be moments where the decision you're about to make could either extend the runway or shut things down.
Yeah.
How do you balance the disagreements and the personalities in the room when you have multiple co-founders and you have a vision, they have a vision, and you hope your visions collectively match, but sometimes they differ?
Before I used to try to make it work, and through partnerships, but ultimately there has to be one person that's controlling the decision making. Democracy and capitalism, like pure democracy and capitalism, don't really work well together. So like having one lead person that like owns more than and controls more, I seen work way better
Than 50-50.
than 50-50s or 4 people at 25. Everyone wants to be equal, but it's not like that. There is always 1 or 2 people that shine, that either accepted the idea. I think it's really good for people to be honest before they start a partnership and say, like, this is what I really want. And I want to be 51%. I want to be the controlling person. I don't mind being 49%, you know, but then you'll say, no, we have to be 50-50. Like, get that out there right at the start, and make sure that everyone around you is in line with the decision-making process and who's in authority and not.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because most people try to dance around it at the start. And guess what happens? A year into it, fights, people exit, you have to buy people out. You know what I mean? It's really complicated if you don't set it up at the start to say, okay, this person's in control. This is the ownership that we're all agreeing to. And then you actually put governance in there to protect it so that it doesn't actually go away. And having 2 people gang up against, I've had every situation under the sun, actually, now that I think about it. Over 30 years and 11 companies, you get to see what doesn't work and what does work. And the companies I see that work really well are entrepreneur-led CEOs, especially in North America.
Why especially here?
Oh, Europe's a different place. It's a very socialistic, all for the betterment of everybody. And their companies are structured like that. They're much older too. There's a lot of money there. There's old money. Innovation's a little less stagnant. They're not breaking grounds on a lot of things. Their taxation system, you know, prevents that too. You know, like that. So, you know, in Europe, there's a lot more people that are not founder-led, and entrepreneurship's not rewarded or celebrated the same way as it is in North America and specifically in the US. But a founder-led CEO has like all of the tools of a business executive, but has the, you know, tenacity and ignorance of an entrepreneur. And we've seen companies over the last 30 years where these iconic, back to your point, where it's like every entrepreneurs are celebrities. I couldn't have like pinned that, you know, I was like, oh, but when I was an entrepreneur, when I was 18, no one talked about that.
Yeah.
It was almost like a dirty word. It was, you know, oh, you're an entrepreneur, you'll never get a loan. You know, oh, you're an entrepreneur. Oh, yeah, you can't apply for that credit card.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, but now they're celebrated as celebrities.
Yep.
I couldn't have saw that one coming. The .com era like birthed it, and then it just took a whole different world now of like, you know, you have like Netflix specials on Spotify.
Well, yeah. And it's, what's interesting is similar to a point you had made earlier. What makes those individuals so celebrated is that they're so open about their journey.
Yeah.
How they got there.
Yeah.
The failures. You know, you mentioned 13 companies. Out of those 13, how many were successful?
Out of the 13, half.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Most entrepreneurs I've had conversations with tell me that they're lucky if 2 out of 10 like are break even, let alone successful.
Yeah. Now ask me how many of them made money.
Okay. Maybe we should redefine what success means.
A successful exit, maybe. I don't know if they ever made money. It was kind of funny because with Flow, we're entering in our first EBITDA quarter in the company's history, 10 years later.
And for those who don't understand what EBITDA is.
Oh, it's profit.
Yeah.
It's our first profit, and then we'll go cash flow positive the following quarter.
And this is the first time in how long?
10 years.
10 years. Which is it's such a powerful point, because a lot of people mistakenly assume that, you know, just open the doors and money will come flowing in. And for the most part, you're operating at a negative for the first several years.
Yeah, I was having this exact conversation with another entrepreneur, one of my partners at another business called Simply Protein. I was saying, there's not very many businesses that you can actually start now and open the door and make money. It's actually mainly small retail locations or something like that, where you actually have instant cash.
Yep.
Okay, so transactional cash.
People walking in the door spending.
Yeah, like just transactional cash and products that can scale within that transactional cash that yield profit, right? And those are few and far between. I bet you it's probably less than 10% of the businesses that could actually do the business and have any hope of making profit in the first year.
Is there a reason you think people are shying away from those kinds of businesses?
They're less glamorous, that's for sure.
And that's the kind of the point I was going to allude to, where it seems like the concept of coming up with some sort of new tech, something disruptive that might change the game, aim for that $1 billion valuation, when in reality, anything I've heard, read, listened to has always been the simplest businesses are often the ones that will generate you profit. And it doesn't need to be as complicated as we make it out to be.
Now we're talking about the hero's journey. Yeah. The ego.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's an interesting paradigm. I think that we all are entrepreneurs specifically. We're all living out a hero's journey. And for those that don't know the hero's journey, it's a very popular philosophy, but it's also a science, and it's a great book. Joseph Campbell wrote it, The Man of 1,000 Faces. And it's a cycle that we go through as a conscious being. And this cycle has been going on since the dawn of time. Mm-hmm. But entrepreneurs are very specifically on that journey. Some people are not. But the entrepreneur is definitely running a script and going through this secular process of, it's almost as deep as death and rebirth. But, they're going through this motion, which is really about ego development and ego crushing. And it's an interesting paradigm when you layer that philosophy over entrepreneurship. Yeah. You start to see that everyone's doing that. So my hero's journey was never to start a small business in my hometown. That's just not who I am. Like, I could have. I did. I started a beach shop on Sauble Beach in Southampton called Rave New World. But it was just a pit stop. It was just the start of bringing myself out of my home and on my quest, yeah. Right? And in turn of my quest, I reached my challenges and villains. Then I broke through those challenges and villains to reach this awareness of success and myself as being the hero.
The gold in the castle.
The gold in the castle. And then, of course, then you just return home, and at the end of it, you've completed the cycle, right? I've triumphed. I am the hero of this journey. And I think that
there's something addictive about that.
There is something very addictive about it. Which is why you go
and start another one.
It literally, exactly. And that's why I'm a lifer.
Yeah.
I'm on the wheel. I'm on the roller coaster. And I've chosen to be on the roller coaster because I enjoy that cycle and that hero's journey. And I think that being an entrepreneur now versus a small business owner, that a small business owner may be very much more lucrative than being an entrepreneur. In fact, it probably is. I would look at the statistics. I'm imagine like per capita on an individual basis that like more people make money doing small businesses than someone trying to build $1 billion company. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe that.
But now it's been so engraved in individuals like us that we can't help but just run the script over and over again.
So how do you mentally and emotionally manage the lows that come with the cycles of an entrepreneur? The rejections, the failures, the shutdowns, you name it. The no one's buying the product, nobody likes the product, whatever. All of it.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Only crazy people get up the next day and go, I'm going to do it again.
I'm going to do it again. Yeah. I think that I'm not really like a low type of guy. So even if I was in a low, I wouldn't actually be aware of myself in a low. Like I don't suffer, knock on wood, and but I don't suffer from, mental health issues.
Yep.
But I've got trauma. I've got trauma. Don't make no mistake about it. I got trauma. I just don't suffer from the low end of the trauma.
Okay.
So I don't really notice the lows. But I can tell you that I notice the roller coaster. So like the ebbs and flows of it. It's funny, Sean Parker, the founder of Napster, then obviously the president of Facebook, he said it best. It's like, being an entrepreneur is like eating glass. Eventually, you're just going to get cut. It's like, right? Eventually, you chew it on glass. Eventually, you're going to get cut. It's like, that's how it feels. Yeah. But lately, I've been being more aware, or being brought aware of this concept of pain and suffering as a part of the process of success. And I do feel a lot of pain and suffering in business. And Izzy Sharp, who's the founder of the Four Seasons, said that the true success is, for an entrepreneur, is their ability to deal with pain. How much pain can you take?
Right, yeah.
How much? And in fact, my largest shareholder of Flow, and my lender too. He lends us all the money to build our plant out in Aurora, and he's a very wise man, and has a lot of wisdom. That's what I'm saying. And he said, just on a phone call on Saturday, he said, "Well, Nick, it depends how much pain you can take." how tolerant you are in pain. If you're going to sit in pain for a long period of time, then I would do it. If you can't deal with pain, don't do it. I'm like, actually, you know what? You're right. And then Izzy Sharp, the founder of the Four Seasons, he used to lay in bed at night at like 2:00 in the morning, commiserating with himself on trying to just like deal with the pain and suffering that he's dealing with, and working out all of the solutions to it. So
why do it?
Yeah, that is a good question. Maybe we'll have to ask Buddha. He said something about pain or suffering is the only clear path to being a compassionate human being that empathizes with people. And maybe what's going on with entrepreneurship in general is that we're using that as a platform to evolve our consciousness. And I actually truly believe that.
I got a couple more questions for you here. I feel like we can go on for a whole other hour.
Yeah, we could.
Health and wellness. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's a movement coming out of the pandemic. I think people have become more consciously aware of the importance of making healthier decisions for themselves, emotionally, mentally, physically. And it seems like a lot of brands, a lot of organizations that have nothing to do with the space are moving into that kind of a space. Yep. A lot of the stuff that you're doing between, health, like between water and Simply Protein and whatnot, is in that kind of an
It's
industry.
all in that space. Yeah.
Why is that important? Why do you think that's happening?
So I can answer it in twofold, and you are absolutely right. Like the wellness space, health and wellness space, is going from like 780 billion to 1.4 trillion in less than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much it's exploding. This is like a tech boom.
Yep.
Or even larger than that. Like the numbers are actually astronomical.
They're only growing. You're seeing even alcoholic brands.
Everyone
is trying to get into that space because they're realizing people have become more consciously aware of that.
Yeah.
Like I said, especially coming out of the pandemic. We were going a million miles a minute and suddenly stopped.
Yeah.
And for that brief moment of time when there was all this chaos happening around us, we realized this is what it's like when you prioritize your health. And we got a taste of it and we love it and we want more of it.
Yep. No, I agree with that. But I also think that we, for the first time, got off the hamster wheel. Mm-hmm. And we realized that we weren't as mentally healthy as we thought we were.
Yep.
Drinking went up. Weight went up. Yep. Like on the flip side, the first part of it was like, oh my God, I'm sitting here in my house, condo, wherever, and I'm with like a very small group of people, and I don't feel great.
Yeah.
Mentally, I don't feel great. I'm depressed. The world's depressed, and I think we realized that. There's only so much you can do with your body health. And so the first wave of wellness, before it was called wellness, was just natural food, like food and food and water and food and beverages, right? So health was a direct relation to what you put into your body. It had nothing to do with your mind initially. Yeah. And then you had the fitness area of it too, but fitness was very focused on body.
Yep.
And so that was the first 20 years. I call that wellness 1.0. And we, and Flow launched in that period of time. GT Kombucha's kicked it off, like back in the late 70s, but you saw this whole movement move out of, oat culture, like, people would refer to it as hippies, but, oat culture into culture, and then natural grocery really started to expand with natural products that are better for you, and some better for the environment, and that consciousness started to arise. But we didn't ever pay attention to the mind. And then when COVID hit, we started to realize that no matter how much we worked out and ate good food, and we're healthy, we still weren't happy. Mm-hmm. And healthy mentally. And that started to shift the consciousness into mind-body. That's 2.0.
Yeah.
Mind-body 2.0. It's called embodiment. And that's the connection between the mind and body. And that's where I live today, personally and professionally, is building up products and services around the mind-body connection. You do the headspaces of the world all the way through to, what you drink and, what you eat and how you actually tie that into training.
Yeah.
It's not just about like my coach, Julian, who runs the Lions Club. He does embodiment training. So we do food, body, and then mind, meditation, motivation, group chats with people that are similar to me. And we're able to build a much stronger connection between your mind, body. And when you do that, the goodness of your stomach comes into your brain. Or some would say that your stomach is your brain.
There's a lot on that.
But so where we're at now in this whole evolution of wellness is embodiment. We're starting to realize that the body and mind are connected, and that in order for us to be healthy physically, we have to be healthy mentally, and vice versa.
Yep.
And so that's the next movement. And then there's 3.0.
Yeah. Last question for you. 13 companies. Half of them you said were successful. Lots of lessons learned along the way. If you had a magic wand, could go back in time and talk to a young version of yourself, the one that was just about to start on this journey of entrepreneurship, what's a piece of advice you would give him that you know today that he needed to hear then?
Have more confidence in your ability to fucking crush it. I see him. He's 18 years old. You know, just, you know deep down what you can do. And if I had learned that level of confidence, moving into that younger version of myself, I would have been a totally different person. Now, you could argue that level of confidence may have got me in trouble too. You know, you can only be so tenacious and ignorant until you get into trouble. But I think that, you know, when you doubt yourself, you're really manifesting a different reality for what people could give you and what the universe at large could give you, or, you know. So when you bring that level of doubt and uncertainty into the way that you're creating things, it manifests into a different way. So I can see the stuff and the decisions that I made when I was younger, as a younger entrepreneur, I would have made them with a little more conviction.
Okay.
And I would have made them with a little more confidence.
Yeah.
And that would have kind of probably catapulted me into a much faster way of what I would view as success. And I wouldn't have made as many mistakes.
Incredible. I thank you, sir, for your time.
Yeah, thank you, man. That was great.
This was incredible. I really appreciate
Hopefully
the
all
insight,
the listeners
the wisdom.
loved it.
Oh, for sure. I'm confident we're going to get asked for part 2. So,
and we get promo codes out for anyone that wants to order Flow. We do direct to delivery across Canada and the United States.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
we'll work that out.
Excellent.
I appreciate you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.